Star panel. The political commentator Dominique Samuels, the former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nickell. Now, Dominique, I know for a lot of people watching, probably what I've just said is very shocking, because if they've watched any of the mainstream media here in the UK today, they would think that Jacinda is making this decision as a virtue signalling act, not because she is actually now largely hated in New Zealand because of what she's done to the country.
The media is completely culpable in spreading misinformation, actually, I'll say, about Jacinda Ardern, because the things that she imposed upon her population were just quite simply evil. And for the media, especially the BBC, to gloss over all of that and to act like she was, the second coming of Christ or something, I think is absolutely insulting. But, you know, it's nice that she resigned. It's nice that the tide is turning against her and people like her. But I want to see some sort of accountability, real accountability for the things that she did to her population, most notably people that have lost their lives as a result of her vaccine and lockdown mandates. What she did has cost people their lives. Will she ever be held accountable? I hope so. But, you know, I don't think so.
Well, sure, she won't be held accountable, will she? Because the reason that she's gone now is because she knew that she was going to be thrashed in the election coming up this year, and she wants to be able to go to a cushy job at the World Economic Forum or the United Nations. That's what this is about. There's a master plan here for Ardern.
I mean, it does look like she stepped out of the way of the political bus, because if you look at the numbers in New Zealand, she is not anywhere near as popular. In fact, she's very unpopular. And I think probably in the background, her own party had said to her, if we're going to stand any chance, it'll be without you. So she probably stepped on from those point of view. And actually, you can see it in some of the statements which she made a statement. She said, this is the price. Her unpopularity is the price she has to pay for keeping people safe. But that simply isn't true. If people felt like they were kept safe, they'd applaud her for that, and her popularity would go any other direction. But look,
brainwashing only lasts so long, doesn't it? Spreading fear, because that's what she did. She intoxicated the country with a great sense of fear. But actually, New Zealanders aren't stupid. They saw what was happening in the rest of the world, and eventually they woke up and realised we're being wrongly terrified by government propaganda.
Terrorised.
A lot of people in her position, prime ministers, mayors, etc., in the world, they were responding to each other sometimes more than they were responding to their own populations. And I think this is the first result we've seen of that. You know, the population look like they don't want to be around, because actually, if you look at what people are saying about her domestic record, it's non-existent. I spoke to one guy who went on about the amount of gangs in New Zealand, what she did about that. The economic damage has been huge. And actually, he was saying her leaving is the best thing that's happened in some time, which I was quite surprised about, because he started his statement by saying he voted for her. So
crimes out of control, poverty and child poverty, which she said she was going to abolish, is out of control. Amy, are you one of these woke lefties who is obsessed with Ardern?
I think Jacinda Ardern's legacy will go beyond zero COVID. And we should be careful when criticising other nations' approaches to COVID, because those in glass houses, our own wasn't exactly spotless either. I would pick zero COVID over what happened here, the state of the care home.
Do you look at China now?
The absolute corruption of Partygate. That is nothing.
What about the corruption that's probably in New Zealand as well?
And when you talk about child poverty, she's lowered child poverty throughout her time in office. She has completely addressed the housing problems in New Zealand, the unemployment rates in New Zealand.
You're reading out Labour Party talking points, Amy. I've just been. What you are saying is completely untrue. Child poverty is up. There is a housing crisis, and businesses are cratering because she locked out immigrants from the country
the statistics
for 2 years.
Really do counter your anecdotal evidence in this situation. They do.
I'll say this: if Amy's correct, then she's New Zealand's the only country in the world who weren't affected by a lockdown. You cannot have a lockdown, particularly the type in which she advocated, and it not have an economic effect. When
Jacinda Ardern announced this zero COVID policy, she made it very clear that this would probably have the same financial impact as the 2008 crash. She was very transparent throughout about the impacts that it would have. But the main point, I think, to take from it is that 10 times more people per capita died here in the UK Surely
Well, no,
that
because again, that's a complete false statistic.
Per capita is actually a really poor way to measure things, because if you look at countries that didn't institute zero COVID madness, like Sweden, they actually have the lowest cumulative excess death tally in the world, and they didn't lock down.
Because that's the thing, you have to look at excess deaths on the whole.
And the other thing, Dan,
and they have record-breaking excess
when
deaths
people do
in New Zealand right
international
now.
comparisons, they negate we are a far larger country, we have far bigger cities, we have a far older population. You have to take all
and we're an
these into
international
account.
travel hub. And actually, Jacinda Ardern locked down the country. I bet you didn't know this, Amy, about a week after Boris Johnson. So she didn't act particularly fast at the start of the pandemic. But I just want to finish, Amy, on this whole concept of kindness. And she always talks about compassion and be kind. Do you think it was compassionate when Jacinda Ardern locked up people who I knew in a government facility as their mother lay dying down the road, and failed to release them from that facility until the next day, and kept them locked up for the week so they were unable to attend their mother's funeral?
No, and I'm not saying that Jacinda Ardern is completely faultless, but I'm saying that her legacy
She's nasty,
goes
isn't
beyond
she?
that. She's not nasty. Every decision she's ever made has clearly been led by empathy and compassion, and that
What is empathetic about creating two classes of people in society?
If you look at her,
where you can't go and get a haircut, can't go to a bar or a restaurant, can't leave your life, have a job without injecting yourself with a medical substance.
She was not working on her own. She was led by a group of scientists, completely by policies that
she was
seemed
driven
the best
by
idea at the time.
ideology
And I think something
and
that
driven
she
by the
will
desire
be
to
remembered by
control.
was her response to the Christchurch mosque shooting.
She'll be remembered
where
for
she
the
was
excess
fast
deaths,
and
maybe.
decisive and quickly saw to gun legislation, which has altered New Zealand for the better forever.
Amy Nickell, Sean Bailey, Dominic Samuels.